Hello, hello, hello. How are y'all doing? We will be having some fun playing some rock, paper, and scissors. So, let's see. Let's make a new REPL. Python. What shall we call it? SN2 rock RPS. Rock, paper, scissors. So let's see, what did we go over last time? Did we go over input? I think we did, right? Anyone in chat? Hello? Nice. So, let's see, to make a rock, paper, scissors game, first thing we should probably do is so this would be a rock, paper, scissors versus a computer. So the first thing we need is, I guess, a random, right? We need the computer to choose one at random, and then we will be choosing, or I guess the player will be choosing what rock, paper, scissors, and then we will have to compare it. So the first thing we need to do is, the first thing we'll need to do is figure out Python random. How do you do Python random? The docs is a pretty good one. Go to W3 schools as well. I think you like W3 schools, so we can look at it here. And then try to figure out what you think might help you the most. Rand range. That would be pretty helpful. Let's see what it does. Turn a number between 3 and 9. Yeah, this would be a very helpful one. Let me just see if there's anything else. Yeah, so technically, rand int could be helpful as well, but they will both work. The only difference is rand range sometimes will give you like 1.5 or something if you don't specify step, but if you specify like step is 1, it's like instead of 1.3, 4, whatever, 2, whatever, if you set it to like 1, I guess that's default, then you'll get 1, 2, 3. So how do you know how to import? I guess we probably haven't gone over that, so let's go over that. So these are modules. So there are stuff that's like default functions and everything in Python, but some stuff isn't default, because if you had to load everything in Python for every single file, that'd be really inefficient. So what they do is they have modules, and if you do something like import random, because it's the random module, as you can see, the random module, then your file will have all the random functions, and then you can try it. So we know we can try to print something. Then we have So what do you want to use? You want to use rand range. So when you're calling a function from like a module that isn't default, you have to specify the module it is. See random. So it's calling the module and then saying, hey, I want to use this function. So we put a dot rand range. So this looks kind of similar to stuff you might have done in JavaScript. So how to use this function? Let's go to the doc, right? Or no, sorry, this one. You have three parameters: start, stop, and step. For something like rock, paper, scissors, what kind of stuff do you think we want? What numbers do we want, and what values do you think we should put in as parameters? Well, 041 is probably not correct in for whichever definition of including or not included, because I guess the reason why you're not sure which one to do is because are we including what number is in start, or are we including what number it stops at, or does it stop right before it, right? So how do you think we try to figure it out? What do all programmers do when they don't know something? Yes, so try looking it up. What the fuck is this? How do I get rid of this? Huh, nice. Ah, so that's very interesting. So in, for example, 041, that would give you the options of 0, 1, 2, and 3. 031 would give you the options of 0, 1, 2. So for our case, we'd probably want the one with 3 options. I find it interesting that even when you chose, you had the option to specify which one you start at, you chose 0. It's probably easier to start with, like, I don't know, 1. But it doesn't really matter. You can start at 0. So we can start with that. Print 0, 3, 1. You run. And you can keep running. And it'll give you random numbers. And you'll notice it's always there. So that's very useful. Give me 1 second. Alright, so what do you think we should do now? How can we use this? You have a random number, assign it in a variable? That would probably be helpful, yes. So I assume you still remember how to make it turn into a variable? There we go. So just a note on Python stuff. Generally in Python, people like to use an underscore to separate words in a variable. The convention in like Java and JavaScript for some reason is would be do this. So this is camel case, because if you add words, they kind of make a camel in the middle. Java and JavaScript also sometimes has a capital case like this. I think this is called snake case or something. But yeah, so just the convention is underscores. As long as you keep consistent, it doesn't really matter though. So now we just have the numbers 0, 1, and 2. How do we turn those numbers into something that actually means something? Because we're trying to do rock, paper, scissors, not 0, 1, 2. Yes, that would be very helpful. If statements are definitely not a JavaScript thing. If statements are a universal programming thing. So, wait, I should probably... Alright. In Python, the syntax for if statements, you'll find that Python syntax is actually a lot easier than JavaScript syntax. It's if, let's say computer choice equals, let's just start with 0. And then what we do here is a colon, hit enter, and this is going to be our first interaction with blocks. So, I guess, let me just make a new REPL. RPS.js. So, how Python does it is you have an if statement. If whatever is here is evaluated to true, something here will execute. And then this is all of this stuff over here. This is all within the block, and when you get rid of that indentation, this stuff will be outside of the if statement. So for example, if you have in the if statement, these are all comments, by the way. If you had a bunch of comments here, right? These are all within the if statement, so they only activate if the if statement is true. But then how Python does it is everything that's not here is not in the if statement. And then here is a HTML version. The JavaScript way to do this would be if say computer choice equals 0, stuff to execute outside of if statement, right? So in JavaScript, everything in the block is just stuff within the curly braces, and the kind of advantage of this is you can play around with it, right? You can do this, and this is still just stuff in the if statement, right? But Python is a lot more structured. It doesn't have any curly braces, it doesn't have any parentheses. What it just does is, if this thing is true, there's a colon, everything in this indentation is the if in the block. So let's get rid of all of this. What do we want to do if computer choice is equal to 0? What's something that could help us make our life easier? That would definitely be helpful, yeah. So what variable do you think we should set to rock? Should we make a new variable? Should we use an existing variable? What do you think we should do? Yes, we could. I probably wouldn't call it RPS. Reason being, you see we have computer choice here. The reason is we are going to have a computer choose something and the user choose something. So I guess one thing you could do is you could name this one computer choice num to signify this is the number choice. And then what do you want to do? We can set computer choice equal to rock. And then oh yeah, one thing that's different from JavaScript you'll notice is JavaScript wants, like, if you do console.log something semicolons, right? All those annoying semicolons you're supposed to do, nothing in Python, just the end of the thing. And to get out of the if block, you just delete the indentation, and that's in the if block. So one thing we can try to do to test this is we can print computer choice. Actually, let's not do that yet. So what we've done 0. What do you want to do for the next one? We only set it rock. This is a very scrambled way of teaching. What do you want me to just write? Computer choice equals paper? Is that gonna work? I know that's not what you're trying to say. Yeah. So I assume in JavaScript you've learned about else if statements, right? So in JavaScript what you're doing, this, right? Else if something, right? So this is not the syntax for else if statements. Oh, this is not the syntax for else if statements in Python. You can't write else if, right? That's not a thing. The way Python does it is they have an elif statement. So they make it a single word and it's just an elif statement. You don't know what else if. Okay, well, else if is actually pretty simple if you think about it this way. If I structure it like this might make more sense. In JavaScript, this is basically what an else if is. If this, else, if this. Basically, the idea behind an else if is, I'll use Python stuff, else if condition 2, statement 2, elif condition 3, statement 3. And the idea behind ifs, else ifs, elifs, and then you can end with an else, statement 4. The idea is the computer starts right here, right? You have computer choice equals 0. If that's true, you do this. Okay, so this was not true. Let me try this. Is this true? If it is true, you do this. If it's still not true, you check this. Is this true? If it is, check this. If this is still not true, then you resort to the else. So in our case, we want to set 0 to rock. Yeah, so in this case, we want to set 0 to rock, 1 to paper, and 3 to scissors. If you, in theory, you could just say this, right? And for this specific case, yes, that would work. But there are also times when, in this condition, it's useful to assume that this has happened, right? So, for example, I assume you know the syntax. I'm just gonna copy paste it in. So if it equals to 1, if it equals to 2, and then right, and you can do all of this if you want. Paper, I'll give you some time at the end. Scissors, right? This would totally work, but it's not really elegant, because even though this is going to execute very fast now, right, because we're doing very simple stuff, when it's doing this, you're telling the computer to check. If it's 0, then you say it's rock. Is it 1? Make it paper. Is it 2? Make it scissors. If it is equal to 0, what you'll get is it'll set it to rock. Then it's going to check this thing again. Is it equal to 1? Set it to paper. And then even though it got set to paper, is it equal to 2? It's going to do all those checks no matter what it's equal to. So even if you've already finished what you need to do, and you know I don't need to do all of this, it's still going to check each time. So that's kind of a waste of computer resources. And one thing you'll notice is if it's not 1 or 0 or 1, then it has to be scissors, right? It has to be 2, because the random only gives us 3 options. Now if you just do if statements, you have to do this. But you say, if you add an L in here, well, you know now that when you're checking this, you also do know that the computer choice cannot be 0, right? Because if it was 0, it already happened here, and it would skip over the rest of this. And that's just basically what else ifs does. Else ifs lets you skip over stuff. And then here, instead of saying else if computer choice equals 2, well, we know the number can only be 0, 1, or 2. Before you already checked it's 0, it's not 1 either. So if the computer already got to here, there's only one option. So actually what you can do is you can delete everything here, and it should just make it an else, because if it's not rock or papers, it has to be scissors. And then so this will run as one thing, and the computer will end where it is. So every single time that you have if else and all of that stuff, all the if else things and else ifs can all be replaced with a bunch of ifs. But it doesn't always make sense. Sometimes it just is more logical. It saves time to do it, and it also makes it easier to read. Something like this is going to be easier for someone that didn't write the code to read than if it was just a bunch of ifs, because then they know, oh, this is one section of code. And then just to check our work, what we can do is we can print computer choice, and it works. Very nice. So next thing we need to do is we need to get input. So let's delete this, because we do not want our user to get what the other side person is doing. So do you remember how to get input? Remember, you can just Google it. I don't actually remember, so I won't actually be able to check your work. The whole point of this is, remember, if you don't remember something, just Google it, because no one remembers anything. That is correct. So let's say user choice is equal to input. Hey, thanks for joining. That is correct. That function, that freestyle distance put in chat, input, is how you would get user input. Dirty? Is that how I say it? So something like that, if you run, you get that. You could type, say, rock, and that would be stored in user choice. So now you've already learned if, if else ifs and else, you've gotten the user choice. So now computer choice is either equal to rock, paper, scissors, and user choice is equal to rock, paper, scissors as well. You now know enough to write the next part, and at the end you now know enough to compare the user and computer choices, figure out who wins, and print out a result. So you now know enough to finish the project, and I guess I'll give you 5-10 minutes to figure out, and I will be watching chat very closely if you have any questions. I will no longer put any music on because I assume you have better music. Let me know if you want music though. Is that a category? Let me see. Alright, I switched it. Thank you. That's a really good question. So, one, I guess, kind of limitation of Python as a language is, at least here, it's like a terminal. It's like a terminal interface. So, whereas on a website and with JavaScript, this is one of the main advantages of JavaScript when you're first learning is you can kind of build like a website and you can get drop down menus. Uh, with Python, especially when you're beginning, you want to stick with the terminal. It's the easiest way to learn Python. And terminal is you can only have users type in text. Uh, One thing you can do is you can say if you can make it so that if the user types R, and that's not a thing, or the user types like Q, like that doesn't make any sense, right? That's not rock paper scissors. You can have like input filtering, so you can say, hey, you didn't type rock paper or scissors, try it again. So you can filter inputs, but as a limitation of where we are and because of Python, you can't really do that. So that's actually probably a question you won't get an answer to very easily. I guess that's one of the issues with trying to learn Python or learn stuff when you online when you don't know a lot yet. That's one of those things that is, I guess, the internet expects you to know, and that's not a good expectation. Yeah, so we'll go over input filtering after we get the main game finished. For now, just assume that the person entered rock, paper, scissors. That's good enough. How are y'all doing? Are we getting close? Are we getting stuck on anything? Alright, I mean, you can try testing it. I mean, you can just play it around. It's just rock, paper, scissors. Is there anyone else that's still working on it, or do y'all want me to paste in my code? I will take that as everyone else is ready, so I'll paste this in. Does what you have look kind of similar to this? I mean, at this point, whatever works, works. As long as it's working, and I mean, one thing you can do is you can make sure to print what you have for the user choice, what the computer choice is, and then print the result. That way you can just play it over and over again. See, scissors. And you can keep testing until you see something that doesn't work. See, papers, scissors. Aha. There's something strange here, right? Or am I being dumb? Does this make sense? What's wrong here? Or do you want me to just fix it? I'll just fix it, whatever. Alright, now you can see testing stuff is useful. There we go, so all of this works. I can try to explain this, I guess, more pretty efficient way of doing things. So here, I'm just assuming that the user is either putting rock, paper, or scissors, and exactly that. So we're saying, first of all, the easiest thing for the computer to check is, are they equal, right? Because if they put the same thing, it's obviously a tie. So that was what I did for the first one. Then I do a section of if statements. Is it a rock, or did the user choose rock, paper, or scissors? And then within each thing, if it's a rock, we compare it with if computer is paper or scissors. And technically, if you want it to run even faster, you can just delete all of this and make these else's. And why can't we do that? Because, well, we know user is rock, right? And because this is after this, we also know computer cannot be rock, because otherwise it would have ended here. So we know user is rock, computer is not rock, and we can go from there. But this is probably an easy way. It works. So is everyone cool with that? Anyone want more help with more practice with if statements, or should we move on to, or I guess the next part is also if statements, but move on to input filtering. What's the word for it? Let me figure out. Is everyone good though? Input validation. That's what it is. So this next section is going to be about input validation. So right now, because of this, if I put, say, paper, but not capitalized, my if statement won't know what to do. It'll be very confused because I didn't enter rock, paper, or scissors. So one thing to do is I guess we'll introduce two things. We'll introduce loops. This is not a great way of introducing loops, but who cares? There are 3 main loops in Python. The first one, which is the most simple one, is kind of like an if statement. It's a while loop. It's while, or the syntax is like an if statement. While condition do this. And it's pretty simple. It just says while whatever thing is true. So while let's say user choice is equal to rock, you can print something, right? So what this will do, it'll keep repeating what is in your block, and it'll keep doing that over and over again until this condition is not true. Is that right? Oh my god, it's been way too long. While loops. With a while loop, we can execute a set of statements as long as the condition is true. So as long as this is true, it'll keep doing it, and because, you know, while true, do something. Does that make sense? Alright. So let's say one way we could do this, or I guess how do you think we could use a while loop in this case with this guy? It would actually probably be easier if I could see everyone's repos, but yeah, okay, let's see. Well, here's choice. So this is interesting. I haven't taught Python syntax for this kind of stuff, but let's just get your stuff in here. So this I believe is a statement, not equals Python. Yeah, so this is a thing in Python. So what you're doing is while user choice is not rock or paper or scissors. Is this exactly this code you want to type? Is that the syntax you're trying to type? Or are you just saying, or what like exact code would you want to type in it? Is this it? And then what do you put in the body? So that's pretty close. I guess I'll address the or thing first. In Python, or is actually the right thing. It actually means what it thinks you mean. So in JavaScript, I don't know if you've learned this yet. This is what or is. Oops, that probably was very loud on the mic. This is what or is. It's 2 lines. In Python, it's just the word or. Now, Python still doesn't actually fully understand this statement. Python sees while users equal to rock, or is not equal to rock, or paper. Well, paper is not a statement. That's just a thing. The paper doesn't evaluate to true or false. Technically, it'll actually evaluate to true, but that's a story for a different time. So what you want to do is you just want to copy this in front of each one. So what this is going to do is check, is user not equal to, is it not equal to rock, or is it not equal to paper, or is it not equal to scissors? Now, is this what we want? Is this the thing we want? So when it does this, it'll check. Say the user put in like scissors, right? And they actually put in scissors correctly. We want it to skip over this, right? We want this to evaluate to false. So is it not equal to rock? That'll evaluate to true. So is that what we want? That doesn't really seem like what we want. So something interesting in this case is we are thinking about it from the perspective of under what conditions would we want it to evaluate as true, right? But that actually is a more difficult way of thinking about this. Let's for a second, well, if you put and here, or is actually the right thing to be using. If you put and, what would happen? It would have to be not equal to rock, it would also, and not equal to this paper, and not equal to scissors. So even if you put the right thing in, it would not work, right? Wait. Actually, I think technically that would work. Oh yeah, that would work. That would work. Yeah, we can go with that. What I was going for was, though, an easier way of doing this. This would work. An easier way of doing this is, instead of thinking about it this way, let's say the condition we want it to work under is we want it to be equal to rock, or equal to paper, or equal to scissors, right? That's what we want, right? And then we want the while loop to see the opposite of that. So to get the opposite of a thing, we just not it. So while the thing we want is not true, does that make sense? And did actually work, by the way. So if you put like maybe these exclamation marks and that does actually work. Both of them work. So the reason I put parentheses is because, say if I didn't put parentheses, I just did this, right? I'm pretty sure what it would do is it would say, well, the not would only apply to this, I believe. And we want not to apply for the entire thing. And for things like this, even if technically the way Python reads it might be that it not applies to the whole thing, you might not want to risk it, I guess. It's just easier to read if you add parentheses. That it's like math. You can just add parentheses to show that this is the thing we want. And the interesting thing in Python is, if I'm not mistaken, you can actually just add parentheses here when you're evaluating stuff too. It doesn't do anything because there's nothing on the parentheses. But I mean, as you know, the parentheses work the same way as they do in math. So they do the thing first, and the thing outside applies to everything inside. So this is, I'm pretty sure, the only way to make it apply to everything, and it's also easier to read. So you can go with either of these. I'm pretty sure they both work. I'll just go with this one for now. And then there's the next issue of what to put inside the block. So let's look at what would happen here. Right? If the thing that, if the user choice is not valid, right? You're going to print a valid statement. And what it's going to do? What is it going to do? It's going to go back to the beginning while this thing, and it'll keep checking and keep checking. And that's why I'm not even going to attempt to read that name. That's why that person put in chat that it's going to spam. Because if it was like, say, if, and we just ended the program, then I guess that could work, right? We're just saying, hey, that wasn't right. I'm just going to stop everything because it didn't work. But what we want is, that's not a great user experience. What we want is to keep checking what the user chose and keep asking them for their input until they enter a valid input. Does that sound like a better user experience? I hope it does. So instead of printing please enter a valid statement, how could you ask the user again? That's right. So what, instead of this print statement, what do you think we should put here? And you can just put it in and try it out and see if it works. We got something working. Yes, that will work. Something like, please enter rock, paper, scissors. If you try it, you say gun. Oh, that doesn't work. If I misspell, or not misspell, don't enter a capital letter, there. And if I finally enter a thing, rock, see, it'll work. So this is one way of doing input validation. Ideally, you would probably ask the user to like select something in a drop-down menu, but that's not really a thing we can do yet in Python, at where we are in Python so far. So yeah, so now we have a rock paper scissors game. What you can do as a next step is you can see how we had a while loop here, right? Use that while loop to keep asking the user to input something that's correct, and then once they got entered something that was good, we proceeded with the game. One thing you can do is you can put the entire thing, or not the entire thing, but like put most of this, like all of this stuff, put all of that thing in a while loop, and allow the user to keep playing the game over and over again. And then you need to make sure that you reset what the computer choice is with each one, and you need to make sure that at the end of each game you have to like ask the user, do you want to keep playing? And only if they say they want to keep playing, or have a way for the user to quit, to exit the loop. But that is one place you can bring this project. Otherwise, that is pretty much the end of the lesson. If you have any questions, please let me know. But that is pretty much it. Oh, I hope the VOD is very good. I forgot to hit record. Any questions? Alright, thank you. And thank you for the follow. Okay, N4NSH. How do I say that? How do you expect me to say that? Please let me know. I'm very curious. Nanch. I guess that makes sense. Well, then that's not rock paper scissors. That's 1, 2, 3. Oh, yeah. You mean like over here? You can simplify the game in many ways. Rock paper scissors is just an overall horrible game to program, because you have stupid rules like this that are very human set. Like for example, something like Hangman is, I guess, has simpler logic, or is less tedious to program. There's a lot of things you can do with stuff. Ideally, you find some fancy math solution to compare numbers, but we're just here to learn about if statements, have some fun. Thank you for the follow, Freestyle Distance. I'll assume those are some good O's. Well, thank you for the follows. Thank you for watching. I will upload this as a VOD on YouTube, hopefully, because I forgot to record, but Twitch should have VODs, so that's good. See you next weekish, next 2 weekish. I don't know. I'll figure out a time. See ya.